8 plus me, right?
Yes, and I believe reached out to Avery to see if the live stream is good, but let me just go on the YouTube channel real quick. Okay. Should be all good on the live stream.
And y'all can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Chair Kite, and I would like to welcome you to the January 12th, 2022 Historic Resources Commission meeting. The HRC is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by North Carolina general statutes, the City of Asheville's Unified Development Ordinance, and Buncombe County Ordinance. We are authorized to hear requests for certificates of appropriateness for alterations, demolition, new construction, and other work within historic districts, or for the alteration and demolition of historic landmarks, and other duties, including preliminary review of subdivisions as specified in the ordinances for the HRC. Since we are meeting virtually, please note that members of the public can watch the live stream on the city's YouTube channel and/or participate by phone by calling 855-925-2801 and entering code 9384. For those wishing to give public comment during an agenda item, please call in and press *3 to enter the caller queue. I will now ask commission members to introduce themselves and say a sentence or two about their background or experience as it relates to serving on the commission. Vice Chair Spring.
Hi, I'm Emily Sprang. I've got a master's degree in historic preservation, and I work in design and construction, all residential.
Commissioner Lazaris.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I have a background in archaeology and have also a background in historic preservation and renovating historic homes.
Commissioner Hornaday.
I'm Will Hornaday, and I'm a resident of Albemarle Park, a local historic district.
Commissioner Gross. Sarah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
I'm having some weird issues, but I'm Commissioner Gross. I have a background in anthropology and archaeology.
Commissioner Oliva.
Hi, I have a PhD in American history and have worked in historic preservation previously.
Commissioner Falcon.
Hi, I'm Georgine Falcon, and prior to moving to Asheville about a year ago, I was on the Historic Preservation Commission in Elizabeth City for about 14 years.
Commissioner Vaughn.
My name is James Vaughn. I have a master's in public administration, and I've worked on a number of historic preservation projects, getting things on the National Register of Historic Places.
And I am Emily Kite. I am a local architect here in Asheville.
Oh, hey, Emily, it's Stephanie. Yeah. I'm here too.
Oh, hi, Stephanie.
Hey.
Sorry about that. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
No, you're good. Hi, I'm Stephanie West. I'm a commercial broker. I handle sales and leasings of commercial historic property.
It looks like Shannon, Commissioner Watkins is also here. Good. Shannon, can you hear us?
Yes. Thank you. Or you're okay. Different Shannon. Sorry.
There you go. All right. I think we've got everybody here today. Okay. We will consider the minutes from the December meeting of the HRC. The meeting minutes include findings of fact and conclusions of law. Has anyone noted any corrections? Do we have a motion to pass the minutes, to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it. Lazaris?
Okay. We will vote by roll call. Vice Chair Spring,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazaris,
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday,
Aye.
Commissioner Gross,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
I wasn't here.
okay, Commissioner Oliva,
I also wasn't here.
okay. Commissioner Vaughn,
Wasn't here.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins.
I was not present. So just to clarify, even though you're not present, doesn't mean you can't vote on the minutes. So
Which makes
if
no
you've
sense.
reviewed the minutes, then you can vote on the minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Myself is an aye vote as well, and I think though that motion will pass. We will now begin the evidentiary hearings for the items listed on the agenda. As a quasi-judicial proceeding, the HRC is not setting policy, nor are we soliciting public opinion on the desirability of an application. The HRC hears and considers evidence presented and applies the standards set forth in the guidelines and standards of the specific historic district for that application. The HRC must make its decision upon competent, material, and substantial evidence to determine the facts of the hearing. The HRC will use judgment and discretion to apply the standards contained in the relevant guidelines to the facts. The commissioners, in voting for an item, will not have a fixed opinion that's not susceptible to change, will not have a conflict of interest, and will not have engaged in ex parte communication regarding the application. Rules for speaking are as follows. The meeting is open to the public, but participation is limited to interested parties who wish to provide comment or testimony regarding the proposal. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and how they relate to the relevant historic district standards and guidelines, not personal preference or opinion. Witnesses must swear or affirm their testimony. At this time, I will administer the oath for all individuals who intend to provide witness testimony. We may do this 2 or 3 times throughout the course of today's agenda, just depending on which applicants are present on video at the moment. And if others haven't joined, we'll catch them on a later go around before their application is heard. So I want to double check. Michael McDonough, it looks like you're here with us already. Blan Holman.
Hi, I am present.
Gotcha. John Cusera.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. And Holly Mason.
Present.
Is there any other folks for any of the agenda items today that are currently present that I haven't caught?
Sarah Howell, do you think you're gonna speak at all? Maybe we can, she's here, I think, for 74 Cortland, so if she needs to speak at that time, maybe we can start her and then.
I'm going to go ahead and read the oath to all of you, and then I'll ask you each individually by name to affirm one at a time. So if you please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you present during the hearing for a certificate of appropriateness or preliminary subdivision approval before the Historic Resources Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Michael McDonough?
I affirm.
Blan Holman?
Yes.
John Cusera?
Yes.
Holly Mason?
Yes.
And Sarah Howell?
Yes.
Alex Cole?
Love you.
You're on mute, Alex.
Yes.
And I guess Shannon, I think we always catch you also.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that covers everybody for the time being. And I think that we are ready for our first public hearing item. We've got to, I think, make a motion to start with to continue the 43 Elizabeth Place project to February's meeting. Do we need to do that?
No, it was already continued to February last month.
All right. So then we're ready to start with new business in Montford at 124 Montford Avenue, which is a subdivision. And Alex, we'll start with your staff report.
All right, thank you, Chair Kite, members of the commission. Happy New Year to everyone. The first item is a pretty simple subdivision application. So I'm going to just go through it really quickly. The subdivision request is at 124 Montford Avenue. There is, sorry, Michael, I'm going to mute you because I've got a little bit of feedback. It's a pretty big lot, as you can see, 0.67 acres. The proposal is to divide the part of the parcel with this existing structure to the south off into a 0.33 acre lot, and then about the same size lot to the north will be a new lot. Just to give some further context, sorry, wrong slide. This is the existing structure. It's a multifamily structure, and then this is kind of looking into the where will be the newly subdivided lot next door. This property is located pretty close to the head of Montford. It's just a house or two down from the corner of Cortland and Montford. I'm not noting any concerns. I think that the newly subdivided lot will provide plenty of room for a new structure to be built there that would be consistent with the historic development pattern in terms of the overall size and form setbacks in that particular block. So I'm not noting any concerns, but I'm happy to answer questions if you all have any.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Alex?
I have no questions.
Alex, I wondered about where it said there's a 12-foot drive. Right now, it's probably half that. So is that affecting the wall out front at all, that drive, or is that something we don't worry about yet?
That's the existing drive.
Is 12 feet?
The one
wide?
that's in between.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a survey.
Okay.
So I would assume it's correct.
Okay. All right, that was my question.
It's probably hard to tell from the photograph, and I didn't measure the width of the driveway, but that's a pretty standard width for driveways in the district.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
We don't know yet.
Michael, do you have any additional information that you'd like
Yes,
to?
I can add clarity to that last question. The intention would be that whatever development happens on the subdivided parcel share the current driveway. So the 12-foot easement is essentially an agreement between the two property owners that the intention is to kind of share access to rear yard parking area within the same driveway.
Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll open the floor for public comment.
Chair, there are no callers.
Thank you. We'll close the floor for public comment. Commissioners, any further comments or discussion? Are we ready for a motion?
Madam Chair. I'm hearing no dissent, so I'm going to just plow forward. Is that okay? That's good?
Yep.
Based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, minor subdivision application, 5 pages, Exhibit B, proposed plat, 5 pages, no other exhibits, and the commission's actual inspection review of subject property by all members except, I move that this commission approve the preliminary subdivision approval request based on the following. 1, that the application to divide the existing 0.67 acre lot into one 1.34 acre lot and 1.33 acre lot. 2, that the standards for new construction found on pages 92 to 93 in the Montfort Historic District Standards, adopted April 14th, 2010, and amended December 11th, 2019, and Unified Development Ordinance Section 715.1 were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. Subdivision of the lot would allow for new development features, at a minimum to be built in a manner that is congruous with the special character of the historic district as it relates to the building setbacks, orientation, and consistency with the historic development pattern. B, new lot with existing structure will retain its congruency with the historic pattern in terms of building orientation, setback, retention of green space, and spacing between structures. 4, that this application and improvements proposed in the application before us for a preliminary subdivision approval are congruous with the special historic character of Montfort Historic District.
I'll second the motion. Sprang.
We will vote by roll call. Vice Chair Spring,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday,
Aye.
Commissioner Gross,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins,
Aye.
myself, aye as well. That motion carries.
Based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a preliminary subdivision approval be issued with no conditions.
I'll second. Sprang.
Okay, we'll vote by roll call. Vice Chair Spring,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday,
Aye.
Commissioner Gross,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins,
Aye.
myself, aye as well. That motion also carries. I think that concludes this application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is 162 West Chestnut Street, also in the Montfort Historic District. Alex, we'll start with your staff report.
Thank you, Chair Kite. So this application has a few different parts, but mostly it's pretty minor changes. Just to orient everyone, down on the right is the parcel map. This site is located behind the, well, it used to be Chiesa, the restaurant that's on the corner of West Chestnut and Montfort, but I understand that restaurant just recently closed. But in any case, this property is located immediately behind this. There is a right-of-way that goes between them, but it's a fairly big parcel. So on the left is the site plan. Kind of hard to see in my drawings, but not my drawings, but the drawings. But in the photos, you could probably see, especially on the photo to the right, this is looking towards the west. So this little bump out that is on the far left on the rear elevation is proposed for removal. If you study the Sanborn maps, you can see that it was not an original part of the house. This little portion was where the porch is, but this little part was added later. So they're proposing to remove that. That's probably the biggest change that you'll see. And then this is the existing rear elevation on the top and the proposed rear elevation on the bottom. So part of the application is kind of involves moving some fenestration around. This part here where these two windows are is the part that's going to be modified. So this little bump out with the hip roof on the left will be taken off. And then the whole rear of that, the hip roof beyond that section of the building will be restored. And those two windows will be relocated, and there'll be these will be three new wood windows that will match the existing 12/1 double hung windows on the house. The house was owned by a church for a while and was super mucked up on the inside. So they did a bunch of funky stuff, and at some point there had been a fire escape on the rear. So there is kind of this existing door on the second floor that is not original to the structure and goes to nowhere at this point. So this little window will be relocated to that opening, and then the siding will be restored around it. So moving around the structure. So also on this elevation, you'll see here, it's kind of hard to see, but on the very bottom below this 12/1 window, there's a set of cellar doors, probably easier to see in the photograph. You can kind of see that little gray rectangle there. That's the entry to the cellar. Those are proposed to be relocated around to the west elevation. Also kind of hard to tell from the rendering what that will look like, but if you can see this on the basement level, this little 9-light casement window will be removed and converted to a door, and then the cellar doors will be installed over that opening. And this is what it's a product called Cleargrass. It's their glass cellar doors. So that's what that will look like on the west elevation. And there's a couple of other window changes, moving things around on this side to accommodate the interior renovations that are occurring in the house. I didn't note any concerns about the work that's being proposed. Sorry, one other thing on this elevation is an enclosure for some new mechanical units. It will be a painted wood enclosure. And then the other thing that's important to note let me grab an image of the front elevation really quickly. Somehow I left that out. Let's see. Here's an image of the front elevation. There is a porch. The front porch wraps around the north and east sides of the building. The porch posts are kind of unusual in that they're covered with the pebbled ash siding to match the rest of the house. I'll let Bland speak to this, but I think it's our assumption that that was not an original treatment for those brackets and posts. I've not seen any other house in Montford, and Bland consulted with Dale Slusser, who is a local historian and has investigated many, many historic structures in Asheville. And so I know that Bland got some information from Dale that he could probably share with you about restoring those back to wood. Let's see. So other than that, nothing else really to note. There's some tree removal in the front. I have gotten all the specifications requested in the report from the applicant. The only thing that I missed in my initial list to him was what the species of trees that will be replanted to replace the ones in front. The trees that are proposed for removal are the ones, if you went and made a site visit, there are several trees that are growing right up pretty close to the foundation and have outgrown their intended space. And so just need to confirm with Bland what the plan is for replacement species. The guidelines dictate that replacement species should be of same or similar species from the Montford recommended species list. Most of the time when we're looking at hemlock trees that are being removed, we aren't requiring that exact species since they are having so many health issues, but another evergreen from the list would be best. So I think that covers everything that I noted in my report, but if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for Alex?
Not at this time.
Okay, Bland, have you got any other information you'd like to offer to commissioners?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all, and it's exciting for us. And not really. I mean, we're trying to focus on maintaining the integrity of this house. It's been through a lot. Frankly, it's been rode hard and put up wet, and so a lot of work is going on inside to restore it, and we're excited about that. And yeah, and Dale came in and looked around, and has done some of the research. We tried to add to the historic file. We did. I don't know if this is in anybody's files, but the story around the neighborhood is that this house was slated for, the church owned it and bought it supposedly to make a parking lot, and proposed to flatten it. And the rumor, or at least the word around the neighborhood, is that historic preservation has pushed back, and they were not able to do that, which is, I think, a good story in historic preservation. And now it will have the opportunity to be restored closer to its original condition. And we're excited about that.
Can you talk a little bit about your plans for the columns in the front?
Yes, and I have we've looked at that, and I will say we're not sure if the stucco is original or not. And at this point, the best stucco integrity of the entire structure is on those damn columns. So removing them would require jackhammers, and we don't plan to do that. The rest of the stucco, as you can see, the pebble dash has got some serious problems around the house. But those columns, I have looked around Montford. I've never seen a house with those. There are no other houses with that. But we're not itching to remove that stucco at this point, given how hard it's on there, and we're not sure if it's original or not.
So at this point, your proposal includes keeping them the way they are.
I think so. I think that's where we landed. I don't recall exactly, but my proposal today to you is to leave them as they are, just because for a variety of reasons. Yeah. So I can clarify that on the record, is that we intend to keep those as they are.
Okay. Commissioners, does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I had a quick question, Glenn. Is the back door being reused?
There are two back doors
on the ground level.
Yes. The main back door to the hall we will leave.
Okay.
There's another door that is, you can see it. It would be a side elevation.
No. I saw that. That all made sense. It was just that there's a divided glass light on that back door, I think, and the drawing shows a single. I was just making sure that door was remaining, or if there was a plan.
The plan is to keep it the same.
Great.
Other questions?
I didn't see in the packet if there's a proposed color scheme for exterior colors. Have you given thought to that already?
We haven't frankly gotten that far. We have not proposed to change the color. I think one day we would, probably at least to add a little color to the trim, but I understand that would require us coming back in, I assume.
We actually, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Vice Chair Spring. We actually don't, I'd have to go back out there with you, Bland, to look at it, but maybe has the pebble dash been painted before?
I can't tell. It's and I think the paint, it's not your average everyday paint that you use on this stuff, apparently. I have not seen any flakes that have fallen off that have different colors in it. And there's a fair bit that's fallen off, but I don't know if the paint would separate, like a wall, you can see the layers. This stuff, you can't really see.
Right. Yeah, we don't actually regulate paint color in Montford. The only thing we would be concerned about is if you came to us and said, we want to paint the stone foundation. Like or if there were, unpainted brick. That's primarily what we're concerned with. I've not had any requests to paint Pebble Dash, but I have seen other painted Pebble Dash. I'm not sure I've not actually ever seen Pebble Dash applied, just in a, during the application process. So I'm not actually sure what color it is when it's applied, but hopefully that helps clarify that we shouldn't need to review a paint scheme if you decide to change it.
Commissioners, are there other questions? I'm going to open the floor for public comment.
Chair, there are no callers.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the floor for public.
Hey, can I make a comment?
I think so.
Hey, I didn't know how to make a comment. Michael McDonough, hey, Bland.
Hey.
Neighbor. I was going to suggest maybe you go ahead and ask in case you change your mind about the Pebble Dash on the columns. I'm 99.9% certain that is not original. And as you get into it, you might be compelled to restore it to the wood underneath. So it seems like while you're here, maybe the HRC gives you the discretion to either take it off or not, rather than you having to come back.
Well, that would be great. And I appreciate that. I will say that I think it looks odd to have them with Pebble Dash. It's like somebody hired a Pebble Dash contractor and they went crazy. I'm not sure it's the same gauge Pebble Dash as the rest of the house, but it's a mishmash of styles in the house. So yeah, I think we did officially ask for that approval. So if the commission is of a mind to give us that option, that'd be great.
I've seen in other houses Pebble Dash put on wood columns before, and this looks like that's what happened here. And I'd love to have that door open for you as a neighbor to change your mind and take it off in the future. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, we'll close the floor for public comment unless there's other callers, which I think there weren't a minute ago.
There are no additional callers.
Commissioners, other comments or questions or discussion about this application? I'm a little bit sort of logistically want to talk a little bit through the columns, and if there's an avenue for some, does the applicant need to decide one way or the other on the columns, or how that would work sort of logistically through the process, Alex?
I think you could put a condition on the CA, kind of like what we did. I don't know if you all recall, but we had a renovation project on Flint Street where the house had aluminum siding on it, and they weren't sure what the original siding was, but likely underneath. And so we issued the CA with the stipulation that they would, investigate the situation, and if by some odd chance there was no original siding beneath, they would come back to you all to get the proper approval. So I would assume we could probably do something similar here, where we said, the condition on the CA is that you all approve it, unless with the stipulation that they do some investigation to, make sure that they provide evidence to staff that seems like, and Bland, I can come out and look with you one day following the hearing. It seems like you may have looked at this, but was there any evidence from how the railing is attached to the Pebble Dash that you could maybe tell that it had been cut off, at some point?
I haven't noticed anything like that, but I'm a civilian, so
I guess maybe they could have done it without cutting it off, and maybe it was just, faced around it. Did Dale offer any insight on that?
I think he couldn't tell. I mean, it's anyone's guess. I feel like at this point, it's odd. I think it's odd. I don't think it looks odd, but
I agree. I think it kind of gives this heaviness to the front elevation that would have been an unlikely, probably desire of someone. So it just doesn't seem like what someone would really want, except for maybe, as you pointed out, a pebble dash mason who was really excited to do their job. I don't have any concern about it being removed personally, just because it's not, since we know that that's not found in other houses similar to this one in Montford. But
Alex, can you go back to that photograph of the back? Either, I think you had them maybe both on one slide, like 2 slides up from where you are.
Yeah, that's a great point, because on the back you can see the
They're
brackets
wood.
there.
And I guess that was the portion of the porch that was original, right? That column where that covers that door in the back.
yes, yeah, that is. We think that's original. It's pretty confusing what's going on with the original shed roof and whether or not. But yeah, that bracket looks to be original, and it's the same form of bracket, sans the stucco as the front ones.
Right, so that might be some indication that there's wood there somewhere. I think, Alex, it's an interesting point, sort of around where the railing would meet those columns in the front. If it was, if they did the pebble dash around it, that would be sort of clear evidence that the railing was there before the pebble dash. Or if there's a raw end of railing, that like top rail where they had to cut it to make room for the pebble dash to go past it or something, might be some kind of interesting evidence. I would certainly be receptive to a plan to remove the pebble dash and having some kind of structure, some kind of a condition that would allow for ongoing investigation of that before we sort of make a final decision, sort of with that, eventual goal maybe in mind. Just for my own sort of, with what evidence is available today, I would be open to that.
I think maybe the condition could say something like that you approve of this with the condition that if there's evidence found in the field that the pebble dash was the original siding material for the porch post, then work will cease and whatever has been removed will be restored.
And I guess, how does that, sort of at the end of the project, if Bland, for example, you decide not to do the pebble dash because you think it's going to damage the wood or it's too hard or you just want to not do it, Alex, how does that condition kind of close itself out if they decide just to keep the pebble dash the way it is?
Well, just because you all approve something as part of a CA request does not mean they have to actually do the work. So theoretically, you could approve everything in this CA, and then Bland says, I'm moving back to Charleston. I'm done with this house, and he doesn't do any of the restoration work. That's okay too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Other comments, concerns, questions, commissioners?
I'm happy to see this house restored, and I have no problem with the removal of that addition, the floating addition back there on the piers. And I'd like to thank the applicant for taking this on, and I wish him a lot of luck with that pebble dash.
Thank you.
I also wanted to comment on an appreciation of sharing that historic research that you did. That was actually quite fun to read through. So thanks.
I concur with my fellows. I was very excited to see the house is going to get a jolt of love and return to its former glory.
I also appreciate the revised drawings. I think it's going to be a great improvement. So thank you.
I did want to ask really quickly, not to deviate from the thank yous, because I'm also really pleased to see that this house will be rehabbed and well loved. I did want to ask Bland about the trees. Do you have an idea? You don't have to know that today. You can, that can also be a condition on the CA that you'll submit a site plan showing whatever trees and species you'll replant after the meeting whenever you're ready to.
I'm happy to do that. I don't have any plans. I'm a native tree guy, so we've got a lot of trees we like. We've already planted a few trees, but exactly what to put in the front there. I mean, they planted hemlocks. I think the idea is people plant hemlocks as shrubs, and then they let them get out of control, and now they're 50 feet tall, and they're about to be 100 feet tall. So exactly what to do there, maybe some kind of shrub or evergreen, a green screen of some sort that's not out of control out front would be great. But like a super tall conifer, maybe not.
Yeah, I think there's some hollies and rhododendron, some other things that might be suitable for in front of the house if that works for you. But we can, if the commissioners are okay with it, we can just, figure that out after the meeting.
And Alex, just to clarify, the idea is that those trees would go back in a similar spot in the front?
No, I think that's what Bland was just saying, that planting a tree that would get as large as a hemlock
is not
like that close to the house. Isn't
right.
it?
That was my concern.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously this house could use some foundation planting for sure, but although it does have a beautiful foundation. But whenever we require replacement trees, we don't require them to go in the exact location. Every once in a while, if there's like a really large tree that's being removed from a front yard and it's really the only trees or only vegetation, we say, replant in this location. In this case, I think it would be good to replant at least a few evergreens in the front that were, smaller maturing evergreens. But otherwise, I think there's a cherry tree, like that could be, a cherry tree or similar species planted anywhere on the site. It doesn't have to go back in the same place. So.
And it doesn't have to be a hemlock because that's what we're taking out.
Yeah, the guidelines just say same or similar species from the Montford recommended species list, and there are other evergreens that would work in place of the hemlocks.
Okay. I'm certainly comfortable with a condition regarding landscaping.
Excuse me, was that a question to me? I want to make sure it was not.
No, mine wasn't. Mine was just a clarification that says I was comfortable that with staff reviewing a landscape plan at a later date as a condition to the CA.
Bland, it's a beautiful home. If you need any help, let me know.
Thank you. We did move from Charleston from an 1850s house, so this is kind of this is a new baby house for us. It's built above grade. It's not full of termites, so that's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, that's great. Careful of those drywall ceilings there, the drop ceilings. Looks like asbestos.
Yeah. Commissioners, other comments or questions? Are we ready for a motion?
I can make a motion if commissioners are ready. Okay. Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application and project description, 4 pages, Exhibit B, site plan, Exhibit C, elevation drawings, 4 pages, Exhibit D, floor plans, 4 pages, Exhibit E, photos of subject property, 3 pages, Exhibit F, 1917 Sanborn Fire Insurance Map, Exhibit G, 1950 Sanborn Fire Insurance Map, Exhibit H, historical research, 18 pages. Exhibit I, window specifications, 2 pages, received January 12th, 2022. Exhibit J, email with material specifications, received January 12th, 2022. Is there an Exhibit K? And the commission's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. One, that the application is to remove non-original 57 square foot addition from rear elevation, restore pebble dash siding trim and hip roof with asphalt shingles matching the existing in material and color where addition is being removed, restore, repair rear porch as needed. New foundation material and area of removed addition will be stone matching existing. Remove non-original door on second story of rear elevation. Install relocated existing wood double hung window and restore siding and trim. Relocate one existing window and install 3 new Victorbuilt TDL 12/1 wood double hung windows on first floor of rear elevation. Relocate 2 existing windows on west elevation. Restore all existing windows as needed. Relocate cellar entrance from rear elevation to west elevation. New cellar doors will be clear grass covering exiting opening at basement level. Restore all exterior pebble dash. Remove stucco coating on front porch posts and restore wooden posts and brackets. Repoint and repair existing brick chimneys with any new material matching existing. Relocate electrical meter to east elevation. Install 1 45 by 37 by 34 and 1 41 by 37 by 34 mechanical units with 3 foot 11 inch tall by 5 foot wide by 9.5 foot long painted wood enclosure on west elevation. Remove 4 9 to 13 inch DBH eastern hemlock trees and 1 9-inch DBH cherry tree from front yard that have outgrown their original space. Replant 5 trees and shrubs on site, species to be determined. All work will be in accordance with attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. Number 2, that the standards for demolition found on pages 60 to 61, roofs on pages 74 to 75, materials, masonry, and stucco on pages 4 to 65, windows and doors on pages 84 to 85, chimneys and chimney caps on pages 58 to 59, porches, entrances, and balconies on pages 72 to 73, utilities and mechanical systems on pages 82 to 83 in the Montfort Historic District Design Review Standards, adopted on April 14, 2010, and amended December 9, 2019, were used to evaluate this request. Number 3, this application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, the addition being removed is not original or historic. B, windows, roof, porch, siding, and chimneys are being preserved and restored. C, the door being removed is not original or historic. D, the window and door openings being modified are on the rear and side elevation. E, new windows will be wood to match the existing. F, trees being removed have outgrown their original space and new trees will be planted on site. G, mechanical units will be located inconspicuously on the side elevation and will be screened. Number 4, that the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Is there a second?
Second, Lazarus.
We'll vote by roll call. Vice Chair Spring?
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus?
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday?
Aye.
Commissioner Gross?
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva?
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Myself, aye as well. That motion carries.
Based upon the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. Number 1, if during construction it is discovered that pebble dash covering on front porch posts is original, work will cease and any removed pebble dash will be restored. Number 2, landscape plan showing replacement trees and shrubs will be submitted for staff review and approval.
Second, Lazarus.
Okay, we'll vote by roll call again. Vice Chair Spring?
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus?
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday?
Aye.
Commissioner Gross?
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva?
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Myself, aye as well. That motion also carries. And that concludes this application.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Deanne. I'll follow up with you in the next, probably a few days or the middle of next week after the holiday.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to our next agenda item. We're still in Montford at 144 Flint Street. Alex, we'll start with your report.
Alrighty, thank you, Chair Kite. This application is also a pretty simple one. This house is located at the corner of Flint and Elizabeth Street. It's this little 1.5 story gable, front facing gable and cottage. Currently there is, I added some additional photos to the file also, by the way, so this is my kind of photo montage, but it looks a little crazy probably on the screen. But the photo to the far left is just a close-up of the existing addition, as I'll call it. If you're looking at the Sanborn fire insurance maps, you can see that this little first story portion was an open porch at some point in time and was original to the house. At some point in the past, the second story was added, and it's currently has a very low pitch roof at present. And there's also a stair and landing that goes up to it, as you can see, is kind of not really consistent with the historic character of the structure. So the proposal is to remove that stair and landing and replace it, and then to raise the roof on that little addition to meet the main crust of the roof that's existing. So I've just added here the rear and the I guess this would be the south elevation. Initially, when I kind of was considering this, looking at the standards for additions, there was one standard that gave me a little bit of pause, which was not aligning major horizontal features. But I actually, the more I thought about it and digested the standards, the fact that this addition is inset from the rear building corners, I don't think it really interferes with the overall form of the main section of roof on this house. So I'm not noting any concerns on the proposal. And I did confirm with the applicant that the front porch or the new railing and stair will match what's on the front porch. So those are all my notes, and happy to answer questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Alex?
None at this time.
Okay. We could hear some additional information from the applicant. John, I guess that's you. If you've got any additional information you'd like to add.
No, I think Alex did a really good job. I was just thinking about this house, comparing it to Bland's house, and I texted Rita, the owner, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just curious. When did you buy this?" She was like, 1985, and I was like, "Can I ask how much?" She said 29,000. I was like, "Man, it's just amazing to see, Montford and evolution." So in this house, what we're doing here is, this house is it's got a lot of odd things happening, and so anything that we could try to make it a little bit more conform and a little bit more angle wise. I mean, she's got like little dormers and little pop-up things here and there, and I think this is really going to help that corner especially. And then we didn't get the landscape architect confirmed in time, but that'll be a separate application, but that's also going to help. But we'll do that, following next round.
Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
Since the stairwell is being replaced, do we have details about what the railing, balusters, etc. will look like?
So the railings and balusters will be just like the front, and the owner actually wants that. So that would be the same. Now, where we're getting into this little crossing there with the railings or whatever, that's what we're going to look at. We're going to try to see. I think they're 4x4 right now, rather than even a 6x6. So we're going to see if we could do something a little bit better looking aesthetically, kind of about the supporting structure. But that rail and then the railing going down will be similar to the front.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, we're going to open the floor for public comment.
Chair, there are no callers.
Okay, we'll close the floor for public comment. Commissioners, other questions, discussion, concerns of any kind? Does silence mean we're ready to?
Yes. Yeah, I think like the last project, this one will be another good improvement. I would be ready to make a motion if the rest of the commission is.
Sounds good to me, Emily.
Okay. Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application and project description, 5 pages, Exhibit B, plans and elevation drawings, 4 pages, Exhibit C, photos of subject property, 5 pages, Exhibit D, 1950 Sanborn Fire Insurance Map, Exhibit E, additional photographs of subject property, 4 pages, taken January 12th, 2020. And the commission's actual inspection and review of subject property by all members except. I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. 1, that the application is to modify roof on non-original rear addition to raise the interior ceiling height. New hip roof will align with existing gable end roof. Replace existing stairs and landing with new painted wood stairs and landing. Railing design will match front porch. All work will be in accordance with attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, or approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for additions on pages 88 to 89 and porches, entrances, and balconies found on pages 72 to 73 of the Montfort Historic District Design Review Standards adopted April 14th, 2010 and amended December 9th, 2019 were used to evaluate this request. Number 3, this application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. A, addition will retain its compatibility with the existing building in height, massing, roof form, and pitch. B, siding and roofing materials will match existing in material, dimension, and color. C, new stair and landing are replacing an existing stair and landing on the rear elevation. D, new stair and landing will be compatible with existing structure in terms of scale, details, material, and color. Number 4, that the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montfort Historic District.
Second, Lazarus.
We will vote by roll call. Vice Chair Sprang?
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus?
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday?
Aye.
Commissioner Gross?
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva?
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Myself, aye as well. That motion carries.
Based on the foregoing findings and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued.
Thank you, guys.
Is there a second?
Yes, second, Lazarus.
Okay. We will vote by roll call again. Vice Chair Sprang?
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus?
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday?
Aye.
Commissioner Gross?
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva?
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins?
Aye.
Myself, aye as well. That motion also carries. And that will wrap up this application.
Thank you, John. I'll follow up
Thank
with you
you.
in the next little bit.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Moving to the next item on the agenda, it's still in Montfort District. We're at 74 Cortland Avenue. And we'll
Thank you,
start
Chair.
with the staff report. Sorry, Alex.
That's okay. Thank you. All right, so our last item is a little bit more complicated, so this one might take us a little bit to get through, but so this application is for a proposed demolition of an accessory structure at 74 Cortland Avenue. So just for context, this is the parcel. It's on the corner of Cortland and Pearson. The accessory structure is actually in the back of the house facing Pearson Drive, but this is a photo of the main house just to give you guys some information about where we are. So here's where things get a little bit complicated. So if you look at the 1925 Sanborn map, clearly there's no accessory structure located on the site. The next update was in 1950, which also shows no accessory structure. And then in 1951, the 1925 version was republished, presumably to make corrections to the 1925 version. And there is an accessory structure shown in roughly the same location. I visited the site today and took a bunch of photos that are also in your file, and I made these montages on the slides, but you probably just want to pull up the images in your packet just to look at the larger versions of them. So initially when I went to the site, I only looked at the exterior, and I did have some concerns because it does kind of appear like it's like this weird version of Dutch lap siding, although it's sort of hodgepodgey, clearly with this, you know, there's some on the side, but it's not really built very well. And then there's like some other tacked on materials, and the back is something entirely different. The window and the door aren't original. And then the other thing that kind of, at first I just presumed that it was not an original structure, in part because, or not a historic structure in terms of fitting within the period of significance, except for looking at the siding, gave me a little bit of a question mark. And then looking at the exposed raptor tails, the main house also has this feature. However, I was able to go back over at lunchtime with the property owner. Holly was kind enough to meet me over there so I could look at the inside. And it is clearly has, I don't know whether they took the original structure that was built between 1925 and 1951 down and then just rebuilt it up, and it's kind of this hodgepodge, but it definitely doesn't appear to be like a historic structure from, you know, from many parts of it, from the way that the siding is attached to the kind of quality of the siding, that there are no footers, the concrete pad is in terrible shape. The roof at some point was either this was a newly built structure sometime later in the 20th century, like maybe in the 70s or something, or, you know, maybe it was just kind of taking in the older structure that was there and, you know, modifying it as needed. But it's you know, as Sarah, or sorry, excuse me, I met with Holly, the property owner, and we got some information from her builder, who's also examined the structure for her. And he's restored other historic buildings, and in his opinion, this clearly would not be considered a historic structure based on the way it was built, just in terms of the quality of the construction. There not being footers and all of those. Or it's not even, wouldn't even meet building code. The picture on the bottom right is sort of exemplary of what parts of the inside look like. You can kind of tell in the other photos that from the interior, you just see through the slats that are, you know, that's looking to the outside. And there's also in the previous slide, you can see down, it's kind of hard to see in this photo because of the sun, but on this photo on the bottom left, there's these concrete blocks up underneath it. So I initially I changed my staff report a couple of times the last day or so. I at first wrote my staff report to say I didn't have concerns, and then I wrote them to say that I did have some question marks because we're unsure of the vintage of this building. But after visiting the site and seeing the interior, honestly, I don't think that there's a way that this structure could be reused realistically. Just to give a kind of example of a similar situation we had maybe 3 or 4 years ago around the corner from this house on West Chestnut Street, we had a similar situation. It was a little different in that the one on West Chestnut had a shed roof where kind of if you're going to the back of the structure, you wouldn't have even been able to walk in and stand up straight. So it was pretty unusual, but the commission approved for it to be removed and then completely rebuilt as well. So I feel like that I support that at this point after kind of learning the information I learned today about this structure. So I am recommending that that the new structure be approved. I did talk with the Holly today about, so this structure is located about maybe 12 inches or so from the property line. And while the underlying zoning does allow for new accessory structures to be placed 6 feet from the rear and side property boundaries, as some of you probably remember, there is a stipulation in the UDO that's kind of newer. It's a flex standard that allows structures within historic districts to encroach into the side setback, and for accessory structures, it can encroach into that setback up to 3 feet. So at this point, I'm not sure what Holly would like to do, but after she learned that, she thought, well, maybe that would give them a little bit more square footage if that were allowed, if they were allowed 3 more feet on that on the western side. Let's see, it probably makes more sense if I pull the site plan up. But you can see here where they've located the new structure 6 feet from the property line, but if they could extend that 3 more feet, that would give them a little bit more square footage, if you all were comfortable with that. So that's the only other thing I could think that we talked about. I did ask for some additional information that's noted in the staff report, and Holly sent me all the information, including the window specifications. I did have a concern about the entry door that she sent me today. It's a masonite door, which the commission has only allowed wood doors on new construction projects. And then I did also note that the siding material is of concern to me. The existing structure is shake siding, and they're proposing lap siding. And I understand from them that the quote they got for the shake siding is very expensive, which I totally understand and I'm sympathetic towards. But and maybe there's reason to justify lap siding since the existing structure has horizontal wood siding. But generally, the commission has required that siding match the main house, and you know, the commission has allowed synthetic siding if that's an alternative that the applicant wants to consider. So that was something I noted, but either way noted that the material should be smooth on the outside. And then I had asked for rationale about mounting the mechanical unit on the structure. Also, it's so tight between the existing house and the existing structure. And there's a fence there in between the two structures. You wouldn't be able to see that from anywhere, and it would prevent having to pour a pad. And so I'm not noting that as a concern. And just to add a little more context, this is the perspective rendering of the two structures together, the existing and the proposed. So I'm going to let the applicant speak more to the information on the age and state of the accessory structure if you all have more questions about that, because I kind of did all the sleuthing that I could. And I'm not an expert in dating buildings. And so but after seeing especially the interior in person, it seems clear to me that it's not historic in the state that it's in, and it is substantially deteriorated. So with that, I will offer to answer questions if you all have any.
Commissioners, any questions to Alex?
Alex, has there been a precedent for maybe doing a half of shingle above the band board, since the original garage didn't break that plane quite as much to sort of bring in an element of shingle?
I mean, I think that's commonly found throughout the district. So if you all, I mean, I think I don't have a strong opinion about making the entire structure shingle. I think that is a good idea to just do it in the gable end, so that then it ties it to the primary structure a little bit more than it currently does.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Alex? Okay. Holly or Sarah, is there anything else you'd like to for the commissioners to consider?
Hi, thanks for looking at this. I think Sarah texted and said she had to pop off, so I don't think she's with us anymore. So I sorry, I just saw a comment pop up. I'm not sure. So the house next door that you can see here on the picture, that is also like half shake and half clapboard. So that could tie in architecturally there as well. But in talking to my builder, I don't know if you guys want to know more about what he said about the structure as it is. But he gave some other, he actually came by again this afternoon, Alex, after you came, and took another look, and he said, the studs are full of termites, and they appear to be pine and 1.5 by 3.5 inch studs, and that isn't in keeping with historic construction style. And then the back wall of the building is plywood, and the inside the ceiling is obviously it's got barcodes on it, and looks like came from Home Depot or something. So there's and then the cinder blocks in the foundation. So it, anybody who's been in this place or looked at it kind of it seems like it doesn't feel original, or maybe some of the siding could have been original, like the German siding, but that's only part of the building. So yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have questions for me?
It appeared like the garage was extended. You can see that band board, like for longer cars or for more storage at some point, and that's why was kind of my guess on why the plywood moved to that back wall. But it's a nice garage.
Commissioners, any other questions at the moment? Okay, we're going to open the floor for public comment.
Chair, there are no callers.
Okay, we will close the floor for public comment. Commissioners, let's discuss. Well, I tend to agree with you. It does sort of feel like, if you look at the sort of side photograph of the garage, that there was someone sort of made it longer at some point. You can sort of see that joint right there, and then might explain the back siding. I mean, the garage is clearly in very terrible shape.
The rafter tails get real janky also.
Yeah.
Kind of on the back half of the back 16th.
I think probably what's even more concerning is that it doesn't have footers, like foundation.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, Holly, is there even a concrete slab in there, or is the floor just dirt?
There is a concrete slab that's in really bad shape.
Yeah, I think in some of the photographs, it looks like there's, the dirt's coming through in some places either. I mean, I think pretty comfortable with an approach that demolishes this structure. 1.5 by 3.5 inches is a pretty modern stud dimension in terms of construction.
Yeah, I agree that, and I think the plan for the ADU is in keeping with the house in its simple form, and maybe we can discuss whether Cedar Shake or comes back in, but it's an improvement on what's there from the garage, from an old vinyl garage door from the street view.
Before we get into the new construction, I just had one question about the demolition of the shed. Agreeing with everything everyone is saying, it looks very cobbled together, not components of great age, but not the whole thing. Has there been any consideration of, if possible, perhaps offering some of the wider board materials for reuse, or recycle, of doing some deconstruction and some of that? I don't know. It's hard to tell from the photos. There's clearly a lot of split wood and old wood, and nothing may be usable. But I just wanted to ask if there's consideration of that.
Yeah, the lower boards you can put your finger through with termite damage. Anything that's the bottom 3 or so from the wood, from the dirt up. But I'm sure there's some salvageable wood above too.
We hadn't taken that into consideration with looking at this plan, but that would be something that I'd be more than happy to look at, a way to try to reuse some of that. A lot of it's just really not cute.
Yeah, that's really
ideas of what I could do with it. That would be helpful.
I don't know. My thought would just be to offer it to somebody to use.
There are multiple salvage companies here, Holly, that I can send you some contact, or maybe not contact, but I can send you a couple of places if you are interested in, and there's anything that's worth saving.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I want to talk maybe a little bit about placement of the structure, and sort of looking between the existing location of the existing garage, which is obviously really close to the property line, and the sort of response that the new plan shows, which sort of honors that side setback. Holly, it would be your intention, if we're in agreement, to move closer to the side property line by making the footprint bigger, or scooting the footprint closer to the property line on that sort of side that it's closest to?
So it's a good question. Alex just brought it up today as something that might be possible. We had designed this with the thought that we needed to be 6 feet off that property line to the side. And so if we had a little bit more space, I don't know, I'd kind of want to talk with the architect about, do we want to add another foot or two to the building, or do we want to just scooch it back? The way we have it designed now is to kind of have the front in alignment with the kitchen window, or that little bump out off to the back of the house.
I have a real strong appreciation for the size and scale of the ADU. and its closeness to to the size of the garage, just in sort of comparing the two site plans together. And I think that we often, there's certainly a pretty modern intention to make ADUs as big as possible with the sort of, Airbnb and this kind of guest house approach, which is a little bit off topic of what the ADUs really were in historic Montford. And so I really sort of appreciate the scale and the size and the relationship that this proposal has to the main house, in contrast to some that we sort of look at that's really sort of fighting the scale and size requirements for these and how they relate to the overall massing of the big house. So I really appreciate that. And I would, from my standpoint, 1 or 2 feet probably doesn't make a huge difference if that wants to get a little bit bigger, but I have sort of an appreciation for it in the size and scale that it is. And in keeping with the sort of story and a half, I think that's really clear in this proposal. That's another concern that we often address and talk about when we're looking at applications for accessory structures. That's one that we wrestle with pretty often, and I think that one is also pretty clear in this proposal. And so I think pretty comfortable. I'm a little bit, would love to hear a little bit of sort of what happens kind of on the back edge of the property. There's some paving obviously between the garage and the main house, and then there's sort of a shared driveway behind there. And are we comfortable with the relationship of the ADU to that shared driveway? It's kind of moving a little bit closer to that compared to the existing garage. And that's an access drive to the adjacent property?
Yes.
Yeah. Other questions, concerns?
Yeah, I would just mirror that I also appreciate the scale as proposed, and I think it's very appropriate to the site. I wouldn't be bothered by like an extra foot or so, or just scooting it further toward the property line. I think either of those would be fine.
Other commissioners, I think we still want to maybe talk about the shakes on the main house and the sort of difference between the two. And any other questions or comments that other commissioners would like to make?
I'd like to ask the applicant, is there a pendant or is there a light plan for that front door? Or is it just...
Yes, there is a little pendant to match what's going on by the back door of my house.
Okay.
And I think it's in the application.
Oh.
It's an Exhibit E, Will. Holly, can I ask, did you all, and you may not have because you probably assumed that had to match exactly, but did you get any cost info on synthetic shake versus wood shake?
I don't have that.
Okay.
My builder was kind of thinking that the siding sometimes looks better than synthetic shake. It's hard to put synthetic shake next to real shake and have it not look kind of fake. But maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know a lot about it. But
No, I think you're right, especially given how dominant of a architectural kind of character the shake gives to your house, and that it is a natural color and makes it even more dominating. So I tend to agree that it probably wouldn't work for this structure to do synthetic. I just was curious kind of to know if that had been, if you guys had even looked at that as maybe something you wanted to do.
We'd kind of tossed it around, and there was kind of a lot of like, it's better to do the regular side, the smooth siding, rather than try to recreate this shake, because it's risky to not, it's risky to make it, look out of place. It's easier to accept a different type of siding rather than mismatched shake.
I wonder if there's well, your idea about putting shakes up in the gable is kind of intriguing to me as a way to maybe make that connection back to the main house in a more budget conscious way, where you didn't have shakes sort of everywhere. I think there's some, the change in detailing. What we don't see on the main house is that sort of band board at the eave of that gable is not a real strong, if I go back and kind of make sure I'm saying the right thing before I talk about this, there's certainly a strong horizontal on the front with the porch, with the sides, the side gables don't have that strong sort of horizontal, and it feels like it's appropriate for this accessory structure, and that might be a graceful way to transition between shakes sort of in the top, at the gable and the sort of shed dormer on the side, and then the lap siding and the main portion of the house. And it might be a more economical way to sort of meet in the middle there.
Yeah, Alex, if you scroll up to slide 15, you see the front of the house kind of mimics that band board slightly. Well, that's the wrong picture. The one in the packet on Exhibit D kind of shows it better, that up under the porch is there it is, that. Yeah, I kind of like the idea. Such a beautiful house. I'm so happy to see this house. And the color is really nice, but that doesn't have to do with anything. But I do think that even in the popped out window, even if just some piece of the main house got over there, and I completely agree with your the assessment of your builder on, you've got is it fiberboard that you're putting up as on the lower on the garage?
Yes.
Then you kind of have a mix of the unnatural wood with real shingle, so it just gets messy. Or I get confused a little, or I flail back and forth. So I'd like to hear other people's opinions, and I'll mute myself.
I agree. I think that if it would be possible to put some shingles on the gable, it would really tie them in nicely. And it is a really cool house. It'd be nice to have its little neighbor have some connection that way.
I'm trying to picture it and I think it would be like an echo of the house rather than something that distracted you by like wondering about why it's only partially covered in the shakes. I mean, I'm leaning to that is a solid possibility to help. unify the two. It is cute though. I mean, like everything else about it fits just right.
I think I may have a slightly different perspective than a couple of the other commissioners. Since it is going to be a new structure, it would be my opinion that keeping it all with the lap siding, is if it's going to be like fiberboard or just the horizontal lap siding is probably what I would do to differentiate it from the historic home. But you could use the color scheme to tie the two together with your trim color, perhaps. That's my insight.
Holly, what are your thoughts in response to some of the suggestions you've heard in terms of what your goals are and
I certainly want the house to feel, I certainly want the cottage to feel as authentic as possible. I guess my concerns are, one is cost, and the builder kind of quoting me with real cedar shake 3 to 4 times what the lap siding would cost. And then, if we're not going to use real cedar shake, then the synthetic possibly looking like it's trying, but it's not right. It's not really there. And I'm just concerned with that look. And so those would be my concerns. The other thought would be, if we were to use real cedar shake and try to really make it look like the larger house, would it be okay to just use it on above the gable and then on the wall facing the street rather than all the way around? Or would that be cheesy looking? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that would look really odd, in my opinion. I would say if your shake is going to be on there, to just do it on the gable ends and then the sides of the dormer. But
okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm sort of thinking ahead, Holly, in the best ways to kind of reconcile this. It feels like you've got some budgeting to do maybe before you can be in a position to make a kind of a change to what's proposed. I don't know to the extent, I think there's been a lot of feedback about from commissioners that seeing some shakes would be nice. I don't know that I heard a lot of comments from commissioners that not having shakes would be a deal breaker necessarily. So it might be good, commissioners, if you really got a strong feeling that that's really the only way the project should move forward, is with shakes in a configuration like we've been discussing, or if anybody feels strongly that it is a deal breaker if there are shakes. I think that might give Holly you a little bit better guidance on kind of where the commissioner stands and how to kind of help you make a good decision for your budget and for your for the project.
I don't feel like it's a deal breaker. I just, I want to be sensitive to, the cost for Holly. I just think if it added just a little bit and she was, felt like that was okay, it would be great. But I want to be supportive.
Yeah, I tend to feel the same. And I'm looking sort of at the difference in photographs, on the darker sides of the house, on the main house, you certainly lose some of the texture and the detail of the shakes with the dark color of the house in the first place. And I wonder if there's, certainly the sunny and that nice front of the house photograph with the sun hitting it. You see a lot of really rich texture and of the shakes, which is very charming. Is it enough to really make a strong enough impact that it's really necessary? I don't know that I see it as a real deal breaker completely, but.
Do you all think there's, and I've maybe mentioned this briefly earlier, but I mean, granted, we're not sure when the existing structure that's there was put there, but do you think there's any case to be made that since it's, horizontal siding at this point, that you guys could support, the new structure having lap siding?
I think the guidelines are the standards, number 8 on carriage houses, what you'd brought up before on roof forms, materials and details compatible with the main building. If we're starting over and with the building, that some element beyond paint should transfer over. And I think that's it's pretty clear on using materials compatible with the main building. Is that how you read that, Alex, when you were?
Well, I mean, I guess part of the way I was thinking about it is let's just say there was no existing structure at all. And as you said, we were truly starting from scratch. I would say, certainly the way the commission has always operated in the past is requiring the materials to match. Having said that, having allowed synthetic materials on new construction, but I was just asking that as maybe a way, since there is an existing structure that does have horizontal siding, as a way to justify the new structure having horizontal lap siding. That it was just an idea. It's not more of a question to you all to think about.
Right. But at 1-story garage now being a 1.5-story ADU, it's kind of changing a bit of it's moving to a carriage house or cottage, like the applicant was saying. That's kind of how I feel. It needs to have just so that to justify in the standards, make sure that carries into the neighborhood.
I'm a little, the existing structure's a little bit of a quandary. We have a pretty large pile of very conflicting information. And including no thank you to the Sanborn maps, which don't seem to clarify much of anything for us, especially if we just sort of interpret what they meant when they republished something years later, and it's mysteriously there. Part of me wonders if, in terms of the sort of diminutive scale of the accessory structure in comparison to the house, if the sort of a lot of shake siding is going to be sort of too much. We often see the ADUs with sort of diminutive window detailing in comparison to the main house, with less lights and less kind of ornate detailing. We're certainly seeing that in this house as well, with the diamond windows on the main house and not really carrying that detail through, which I think is appropriate in terms of helping with the scale and the relationship between the two houses. It shakes maybe too much all over the whole house. But I guess I am leaning towards, I think there's a consistency in the standards that we are helped by shakes in sort of referencing back to the standards, Will. So I tend to agree with you there. in sort of seeing that, going back to kind of seeing the shakes on the gable and on that dormer. Kind of on both sides there, but I'm not sure I can get behind it being a complete deal breaker if it's not there either. That would be a hard one for me to hold.
I will just say that obviously we can all appreciate cost for any project, especially construction these days. But I know you all are understanding of trying to be understanding of property owners and their needs. But I will just say that like your decision has to ultimately be based on the standards.
Well, and Holly, I want to certainly be respectful of your efforts and your, and not sort of directing you in a direction that you don't have all the information that you need to make the right decision either. If there's, more budgeting and costing that might need to be done on your end, we certainly don't want to put you in a position to commit to something that you haven't fully vetted either. I'm struggle a little bit with what the best next steps are, Alex, and being sensitive to maybe some information, Holly, that you still need, but also being sensitive to the approval process and what happens if we extend this out another month and until you can make maybe a more firm decision, Holly.
Well, I don't think Holly wants a delay.
Right.
Not to speak for you, but when I met with Holly today, I talked about asking if her builder could come and that maybe we should wait another month if her builder couldn't come. But and that didn't seem ideal. But I would say like nothing's really going to change, right? Even if she goes back to the drawing board and like prices out doing shake just on the second story, I don't know that really will change much in terms of your decision. Like I think today it has to either be, yes, there's consensus that the second story or the gable ends and the dormer have to be shake to meet the design standards, or they don't. I think that, and I know that there have been not very many commissioners that have spoken up. So maybe if we can kind of hear from everyone to get your thoughts, and if I think that would be my thought, is that it would be best to find consensus today, because otherwise we're going to kind of go through the same conversation in a month. And
yep.
I think we could probably get it taken care of today.
I guess I'll say that I would prefer to have those cedar shakes on the gable end, but it wouldn't be a deal killer for me if it wasn't there. And I wouldn't make my approval contingent upon that.
I would agree.
I also agree. I think that the design of the building is acceptable, even if it's all lap siding, but the element of adding a little bit of shake would be preferable.
I agree. I think, like Commissioner Spring said, being able to pull that one aspect of the home onto the accessory would be great. Not a deal breaker, though.
I could just offer too, from a process standpoint, Holly, one option is certainly to continue to just go think about what you want to do. Or you could say, okay, I'm fine with amending my application to make the secondary material cedar shingle, and then the approval happens and all of that. And then if you, go back to your builder and think through it and you decide you want to change it back, you can always apply for an amendment to the CA and change it at a later date if you wish to. That's one option.
Would this be something where we could ask for submittal to staff for approval once she selects her final material for the gables? Like if the commission determines that we're okay with either material, would it be able to fall to staff to approve the final selection?
I mean, I think if it's okay, if it's either material, then she's gonna want lap siding, right? Does that make sense? Because that's what she's proposing. So
Does the amendment, Alex, come back through to the commission, or is that a staff level?
it doesn't have to if you all are comfortable with that. I mean, but again, you have to base your decision on the standards. I guess if either you feel like it has to be shake or you're okay with it being lap siding, in which case I don't think she needs to amend the application. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's okay, if it's the consensus that everyone is okay with the lap siding, then I think, you all should proceed as is. It sounds like there's some people, maybe a couple people who feel more strongly about that than the rest of everyone. Seems like, that's not a deal breaker for me if it's not. So if that's, if the majority of the commissioners think it's okay that it's all lap siding, then it seems like we have a way forward. But
so on page 93, item 8, new and old on the same site. The only historic examples of this in the neighborhood are outbuildings such as garages, carriage houses, and servants' quarters built to the rear of main buildings. It is appropriate for the newer outbuildings to be located behind and be smaller and similar in design.
right, and then you've got all the standards related to carriage houses, which Commissioner Hornaday was referencing a little while ago, that basically in the past we've just required, accessory structure details to match for the most part, match or be simpler, like in terms of fenestration and that kind of thing, especially when there's a main house like this. It's got real decorative windows. I can't really think of any examples where the commission has approved for an entirely different siding material where none reference the main house. However, that's kind of why I was throwing out and maybe that just made it worse, but throwing out the fact that the existing structure has the horizontal siding currently, that maybe that's a way you support it if you feel like it's generally okay with you that the new structure has lap siding. But if you feel like, the only way to meet the design standard is to have a siding material somewhere on the structure that matches the main house, then I think, then that's just what your opinion is. But I didn't hear that from all the commissioners. It just sounded like either or is okay. And there were a couple of commissioners who felt more strongly about the shingles.
You remind me the page number on accessory structures?
34.
Thank you. New accessory structures should be compatible with the historic character of the district.
There is a standard that perhaps you could pull out that says, if an original carriage house, garage, or other accessory structure is completely missing, replace it with either a reconstruction based on accurate documentation or a new design compatible with the historic district or of the main building or other historic accessory structures in the district.
That feels pretty broad to me. That would sort of echo what commissioners are saying. New garages and accessory structures must use traditional roof forms, materials, and details compatible with the main building or other historic or other historic accessory structures in the district. So there seems to be a few of the standards on 34 and 35 that allow for us to look beyond the main house for
That last line that you read would make me think that you'd have to be in keeping with historical structures by making the siding like wood.
Or
Technically.
pebble dash, or I think if I was the architect on this, I would have, and it was an original. It's back in 1895, and I would have some element of the main house on this, and it's minor. It's not the overwhelmingness of a full Cape Cod cedar shake, but something. And I'm guided by the standards to say that look to the main house to have something here. And I could see this fitting, and I agree with all of you that I could see this fitting in just perfectly the way it is. But I'm just trying to back it with a standard that there's a nudge to take an element from A to B. It's kind of where I'm settling on this, and it's not a. So I'll stop again.
I mean, there's several things I think in these accessory structure standards that I am feeling more comfortable if the house doesn't have shakes on it. Retain and preserve historic accessory structures, garages, and outbuilding materials such as siding, masonry, roofing materials, and wooden trim. If replacement is necessary, use new materials that match the historic materials in composition, dimension, shape, color, pattern, and texture. It doesn't really clarify where you pull those historic materials from, whether it be the main house or the historic accessory structure. There's certainly plenty of evidence to question the historic nature of the addition that's there in the first place. So I think we're left with a whole bunch of mixed information to have to make a conclusion with. There is, if the carriage house is completely missing, replace it either a reconstruction based on accurate documentation or a new design compatible with the historic character of the main building or other historic accessory structures in the district. I think that allows us to look more broadly than just the house for our guidance on how that would look. And certainly there's prevalence of lap siding throughout the district.
I just want to clarify that guideline number 3 really is related to existing structures, like where it is clearly a historic structure.
Right.
And we know what the material is.
And I don't think we're clear in this case about that. We certainly have plenty of evidence to suggest it's not a historic accessory structure.
May I ask Ms. Mason, would you have a lot of heartburn if we were to put a pin in this and say, we'd like to see shakes up in the gables as has been discussed, or would you really, 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 really rather we just put the pin in this and say, let you do it as originally proposed? I think that will help us settle on this. We all seem to be trying to be very nice to you, but unless we can get a definitive answer from you, we could spend the next hour going back and forth on this, not to be snarky.
Not at all. So your question is, Holly, are you willing to do I want to force you to say yes or no to the lap siding, or am I agreeable to doing the shake on the top? Was that your question?
Yes. If you're agreeable to the shake, I say we move forward. If you say, no, I really don't want to do the shake, enough people have said we can live with this. We can find a way to justify this in some way or another. And we would just go forward with that. So I'm asking you if you would please help us here and say, yeah, I'm willing to do the shake, or no, I'm not willing to do the shake. And no one's going to hate you.
So if I said, so help me out here. If I said, no, I'm not willing to do the shake, take a vote, and you guys vote, and it turns out like, no, there's a lot of people who really want the shake. Then, I mean, I guess I just have to see how much extra over, over what I was thinking the budget would be. Like, I don't know how ridiculous or how delayed, like getting those materials could be. So those are my concerns with it. I guess I would be willing to do the shake if it's not crazy. Especially if we're just talking about the top half. I think it'd be kind of an interesting architectural detail. But I guess I'd love to have approval for not doing the shake in case it is a major obstacle, and could we just move forward with the project anyway? That makes sense.
I think probably the thing that makes the most sense as far as how to proceed then would be to approve the application with the shake siding on the second floor. And then if you, Holly, again, if you get into the, project planning and you're like, this just isn't feasible and I don't want to do this, then you submit an amendment application.
Does that set me back another, is that like wait for another monthly meeting, or is that a staff level decision?
Well, the way I interpret that, Alex, and I think I agree with you, is that the project could move forward and start construction now, right? And then you could come back and amend,
And the conversation might be the exact same, right? We might have to hash it out again, because it's just, it may not be the same group of commissioners. We have new commissioners all the time. There may be differing opinions or interpretations of the standards even in the future. And that's just that actually the standards are set up that way to help property owners, so that there is kind of some room for interpretation by the commission in terms of what's most appropriate. But that's why I was saying, like, if there are enough commissioners that feel like that the shake is, critical to meeting the standards, that you all should be clear and approve that now. That it's kind of an unusual situation. We haven't been asked before if like staff could approve that after the fact. It would be kind of a weird thing to do, since it would still be a question mark from the commission standpoint in terms of whether or not the entire building being cited and lap siding would be appropriate. So my thought would be you all either approve it as, shake on the second story if there's enough commissioners who feel strongly about that today, and then how you get into the project, and either that works or you come back and make your case again in the future for it, whenever that comes up. That would be my thought, unless you, like you said, it could just go to a vote.
Is it, I feel like I heard from four commissioners as far as, like it was not a deal breaker to do lap siding.
I think, maybe the best summary, and commissioners, you can help me if I misinterpret what we've said or you said. I think the consensus is that shakes on the gable and the dormer absolutely meets the standards for carriage houses and accessory structures, and for the new construction standards. I think there's no one that would argue that isn't in full alignment with what the standards say. And I think that the second half of that is that there's some vague language in the accessory structures guidelines on 34 and 35 that reference the larger context of the historic district in looking for influence on what an accessory structure should look like in the district, that gives us room to look beyond just the information that we have available from the main house. And I don't know that every commissioner has really weighed in on whether they believe that that's the case and their interpretation of the guidelines, which would be a sort of some better confirmation on approving the application as is. So commissioners, I don't know if I've accurately sort of summarized what everyone has said. And still quiet.
I think given the fact that an approval of, the shakes in the gables would allow the applicant to begin the process of construction, I think that's positive. And then, like Alex said, she could come back if there is a problem with that. But at least that still allows the project to be underway without another month delay.
That's my feeling too, Emily.
Mine too.
Yeah, ditto.
Yep.
Mine too.
I agree.
So it sounds like maybe someone will make a motion with an amendment in it.
Well, that has to come from Holly, a request to amend the application.
Are we talking about tell me again about the amendment?
So the amendment would state that you would like to change the siding material in the gables and the dormer to cedar shake siding to match the house. That would be the design change that you want to make. And it would, we would consider the motion with that amendment in place. And then you would, or that change in place, and then you would at a later date, if you need to make a change to what we approved, to go back to lap siding because you've encountered an obstacle inside the project budget, or supply chain issues, material availability, or whatever those obstacles are, and you want to change back to lap siding, you could amend it at a later date, going back through the application process for an amendment.
Okay.
I think the most straightforward vote and motion today would include a request to amend your application to include the shake sidings. That's the clearest path forward with the strongest consensus.
Okay.
So, Ms. Mason, if you're okay with that, I'll make a motion.
Yes, I'm okay with that. Can we also consider if there are any synthetic versions of the shake that look not super cheap?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that, Alex, is something you'd be comfortable with reviewing at the staff level. So we can make that a condition, Holly, that you would just provide final samples for review at the staff level.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, just real quick, the door I mentioned, the door that was submitted today is masonite, and that the commission has only allowed wood doors. So we would also need a revised spec for that too.
Okay. And I can just submit that to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion. Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, based upon the evidence presented to this commission, including Exhibit A, application and project description, 3 pages, Exhibit B, new construction worksheet, 4 pages, Exhibit C, plans and renderings, 8 pages, Exhibit D, photos of property, 5 pages. Does that include your new ones, Alex? The new photos that you just took today?
Yes.
Okay. Exhibit E, material specifications, 13 pages. Exhibit F, Sanborn, 1917 fire insurance map. Exhibit G, 1915 insurance map. Exhibit H, 1951 Sanborn map, which is a reproduction of the 1925 map. Exhibit I, the 1925 Sanborn. Got all those maps in there, Alex. That's nice. Sanborn fire insurance map. Exhibit J, additional photos of subject property, 10 pages, taken by staff. Oh, there it is. January 12, 2022. Exhibit K, entry door specifications, 3 pages, received January 12th. 2022. Exhibit L, email from contractor, received January 12th, 2022. Anything else, Alex? And the commission's actual inspection and review of the property by mall members accepting. I move that this commission approve the certificate of appropriateness based on the following. The application is to demolish existing 1-story, 324-foot accessory structure in the rear yard, construct new 1-story, 452 square foot accessory structure in the same location. Structure will have smooth LP smart side lap siding with 5-inch reveal, cedar shake siding above that and on dormer. Smooth LP smart side trim with 5-inch reveal and GAF Timberline asphalt shingle roof in charcoal color. Windows will be black gelled when 1/1 double hung entry window with gel double hung. Entry door will be determined at a later time and wood by staff. Is that right, Alex? Moving on.
I think that's accurate. Wood with
Okay.
half light, and then the samples and material specifications will be a condition later.
Okay. New 22-inch by 26.5-inch by 12 Dalkin mini split unit will be Daikin will be bracket mounted to the south elevation and will screen by small shrubs from the Montford recommended species list. If architectural resources are discovered during site work, work will cease until staff have been notified and inspection of site. All work will be in accordance with attached drawings and plans. All permits, variances, and approvals as required by law must be obtained before work may commence. 2, that the standards for demolitions on page 60 to 61, non-contributing structures on page 68 and 69, carriage houses, garage and accessory structures on page 34, 35, utilities and mechanical systems on page 82, 83, lighting on pages 42 and 43, and archaeology on pages 32 and 33 in the Montford Historic Design Review Standards adopted April 14, 2010 and amended December 9, 2019 were used to evaluate this request. This application does meet the design standards for the following reasons. Structure to be demolished is not original to the site, is not consistent with the style and detail of the main house, and is in a state of significant disrepair. 2, new accessory structure has a traditional roof form. Materials and details are compatible with the main building and other accessory structures in the district. New accessory structure is sited in a location that is in keeping with the historic pattern in terms of relationship to primary structures, traditional location of ancillary buildings, orientation, setback, and retention of green space, and spacing between structures. D, proportion of new accessory structure is compatible with the proportion primary to in terms of height, footprint, and massing. Structure is not taller than 1.5 stories. E, mechanical unit will be located on side elevation and screened with plantings. Number 4, that the action and improvements proposed in the application before us for a certificate of appropriateness are congruous with the special historic character of the Montford Historic District.
I'll second that. Spring.
Okay, we'll vote by roll call. Vice Chair Spring,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday,
Aye.
Commissioner Gross,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins,
Aye.
myself, aye as well. That motion carries.
Based upon the foregoing findings and the reasons set forth therein, I move that a certificate of appropriateness be issued with the following conditions. One, following condition. One, that the shake siding and revised door specifications will be submitted for staff review and approval.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we'll vote by roll call again. Vice Chair Spring,
Aye.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Aye.
Commissioner Hornaday,
Aye.
Commissioner Gross,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliva,
Aye.
Commissioner Falcon,
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Watkins,
Aye.
myself, aye as well. That motion also carries. Okay, I believe that was the last item of new business on our agenda.
Thank you, Holly. I'll follow up with you in the next couple of days.
Thanks so much, everyone, for all your thoughtful consideration.
Okay, Alex, we've got a couple of other business items today.
Yes, I am going to turn it over to Jillian Phillips. She is the long range planning manager with Buncombe County, and she is going to give you all some information on the Buncombe County Comprehensive Plan update that is either underway or about to be underway.
It is underway, and as part of that process, we are looking for feedback and information from stakeholders and committees and boards. And one of those committees and boards that has been identified as us wanting information from is the Historic Resources Commission. So I'm going to make this as short as possible because I know you guys just sat through a public hearing, and I have sat through many public hearings, and I know you want to get out of here. But this is going to be interactive. I am going to ask you to engage with my Google slide set. So I'm going to drop in the chat a link to the Google slide set, and you're going to leave it on the edit mode. And I will tell you when to move through the slides. Does that make sense to everyone? I know it's a little different. I'm trying to make it more interesting for you so you don't fall asleep. Okay. So I am going to drop that in there, and I am going to share my screen so you guys can all see it. So you should all be on slide 1, and slide 1 just explains what we are requesting you to do with these Google Slides. You should have the meeting, if possible, if you have 2 screens, on one screen, and the Google Slides on another screen. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to figure that out. You can do either two windows split on your one screen, or minimize the meeting and look at the slides. Everybody got that? Okay. So with that, I'm going to have everybody move to slide 2. And this is the interactive part. I just want everyone to put their name and in this case, you're all, your profession or something you want to tell us about yourself. And then one thing you're looking forward to for spring. I'll give you guys a few more seconds, but it looks like everybody's got the idea of interacting with the slides, and it looks like we have some gardeners in the group, which I am not a gardener. And it looks like we are good to move to slide 3. So this is just our very short agenda today regarding what we're going to talk about with the comprehensive plan and what we're going to be asking for you. I'm just going to go over what a comprehensive plan is. I'm going to give a brief overview of the planning process and project timeline, and then I'm going to start asking you for some information, and that information will be collectively put into a survey using our public input software for the Historic Resources Commission as a whole. Okay, so if everyone would move to slide 4. So what is a comprehensive plan? I'm assuming that you guys probably had something to do with the City of Asheville's comprehensive plan that they just did, but just to review, a comprehensive plan is a 20-year vision for the county. It includes a lot of inclusive public engagement. We are trying to reach we always say our goal is to reach every resident within the county. It will help guide growth. It will address community needs and wants. And it will, most importantly for you guys, identify vision, policies, strategies, and actions for the county. And just to give you an idea of how it fits in with sort of the other plans we always hear about and how counties use it, we like to call this the planning cycle. So your number 1 is you set policy priorities, and that's the comprehensive plan, and it can be other plans. Number 2, you set your work priorities through your strategic plan. Number 3, you set funding priorities through the budget. Number 4, you implement those priorities. And then number 5, you assess progress and you move through the cycle again. So if everyone would move to slide 5. So we have been using the sort of visual of as a tree in how you go through the steps of the comprehensive plan. So at your roots, you have the issues, needs, wants, and ideas within the community. That resident and public engagement, we're just moving into our first phase of that. And then you have the trunk of the tree. And that trunk of the tree is the comp plan, where you're analyzing data, trends, and historic and regional context, and you're developing the plan to create those visions, strategies, and goals. And then how that gets used is it helps the county as a whole make decisions regarding things like the strategic plan and grants, the land use plan, small area plans, ordinances, budget decisions, and regulations. So if everyone would move to slide 6. Give you guys a few seconds. Okay, everybody's on slide 6. So we have 4 phases to this project. We are currently in phase 2. Phase 1 we completed in the fall, and that was our launch phase, and we had a project kickoff. We created the branding and website. We worked out project management and engagement plans. So we are currently in phase 2, which is our establishing the visions and goals. And we're going to assess existing conditions, identify future planning influences, develop plan framework and visions and goals. And that is our first community engagement window. We have our first virtual meeting coming up at the end of January next week. And then February, hopefully, COVID willing, if COVID numbers go down, we will have a set of in-person engagement near the middle of February. So everyone move to slide 7. And at this point, I'm going to ask I'm going to ask you all if you have any questions about the comp plan. And if you would just type them into the little white boxes on the slides. Or you can let me know and I can type them for you. I'll give you a few. Oh, we got one. Okay, so I think we have our last question being typed. So I'll start with this first question. What exactly would you like from us? As part of this process, we've identified a bunch of boards and commissions and stakeholder organizations that we are requesting input from. So in the next series of slides, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. The big one being what the consultants and staff are asking for is for your commission to come up with 3 big ideas that you want to make sure that are is part of the input for the comp plan. And then I'm going to ask you 2 other questions related to that. So does the plan have an impact on the historic? Does the plan have an impact on the Historic Resources Commission or on historic resources in general? Whoever wrote that question, can they clarify for me?
Yes, sorry. I guess I was thinking about the resources in general.
So resources in general, it can, if that is why we're asking for feedback from you, and if there is a public will, if you want to say, through our public input to conserve historic buildings, or we talk a lot about character. There's been a discussion a lot about character, especially in Buncombe County in our rural areas, and preserving that character. So that could directly relate to historic resources in those areas. So will the Historic Preservation Master Plan for Asheville and Buncombe County be referenced as part of this process? As part of this process, the consultants are reviewing plans. And I'm not sure if they looked at that one or not, but if your staff would like to send it to me, I can make sure that they get a hold of it. And it's part of that policy analysis they're completing right now. So how does the community find out about engagement activities? That is a great question. And I'm just going to, it won't let me. I'm going to drop a link in the Teams chat, or I'm sorry, in the Google Meeting chat. And this is our website. And on our website, we have a newsletter that we're sending out weekly. We have a public input portal with a bunch of activities. And through that public input portal, we have our in-person meetings, but also our virtual meetings. We are currently building, but it will be completely built out after our first virtual meeting, an option for people to run through the activities for this first phase by themselves online through public input. and we are trying to get the word out. We sort of had a hiccup. We had these meetings scheduled for January and we had to reschedule everything. So you're going to see, hopefully, in the community at our libraries, at grocery stores, the posters we're going to put up. But we just rescheduled all the meetings, so we're going to start doing that probably next week. If the pandemic continues through this process, will there be any in-person input sessions? So we currently have in-person input sessions scheduled for the 2nd and 3rd and 4th week of February. But we are watching what the Omicron variant is doing, and if we have to cancel them, we will cancel them and then reevaluate what is the best and safest option to get public input. We are all hoping for best case scenario that the numbers go down and we can have those meetings in person. We want to try to make them we will make them as safe as possible. But if it looks like the numbers are continuing the trend of going up, then we will have to reevaluate, and that would be a decision higher than me at the management level and the commissioner level of what we wanted to do. The commissioners really would like to see some in-person public engagement, but if COVID continues the way it's been going lately, then we might have to reevaluate that. So how does the comprehensive plan affect funding opportunities or resources within the county? So the comprehensive plan is a really broad policy document. It's a 20-year document. But that comprehensive plan and what the community has said is important to them feeds into our strategic plan. And our strategic plan, so that's your 5-year plan you do every 5 years, which I'm sure the city of Asheville does one, feeds into your budget. So it affects it on a broader level by setting those policy priorities, and then it feeds into the strategic plan, and then it feeds into the budget. Is there a state deadline to complete this? Not currently. There is some new state regulations regarding having a comprehensive plan in order to be able to have zoning regulations. What we have in place so far, like we have a sustainability plan and we did a 2013 update to our land use plan. So those would probably cover us for the deadline, which I think is July 2022 for the state for having a comp plan in place. But we are going to try our best to get this comprehensive plan done by that point. But if it's not, that's not the biggest deal. And the commissioners have committed to making sure, again, that engagement piece, that all our residents are engaged. Therefore, if we go through our community engagement windows and we look at the data and we are not hitting certain areas of the county or certain groups within the county or a wide enough array of our residents, then we will open that community engagement window up again and make sure that all our residents are heard. So let's see. And I think that we answered all the questions. So if everyone would go to slide 8. And I'll make this quick because I think we answered this question. What are we asking from the Historic Resources Commission? You can see a link to our public input page, our engagement portal. And I highly suggest you take a look at it. There's some great ways to engage in the comp plan, even if you don't want to attend a meeting. But as part of that public input engagement portal, we have this stakeholder survey. So we can move on to what the information I am going to ask for you. So if everyone would move to slide 9. So I'm going to give everybody a few more seconds to move. So the very first thing I'm going to ask, that we're asking every stakeholder group, is what you think the top long-range planning issue for the county that the comp plan should be addressing is in the next 2 decades. So should the comp plan address providing new recreational amenities, creating a more equitable community, working lands, fostering economy, fostering community health, planning for climate resiliency and hazard mitigation, planning for growth, land use, housing and transportation, advancing education and upward economic mobility of residents, protecting the environment, planning for sustainable infrastructure, or if you think there's something that is missing that you would like to add, you can go on to one of those other cards and add it. Otherwise, if you would all grab a dot and place your dots onto the ones you think are most important.
Only 1 dot per person, correct?
Yes, only 1 dot per person.
Are there enough dots for everyone?
I'm not sure how many. I can create more dots real fast.
I think we had 10 folks today. So maybe just one more.
So I'll give you a few more seconds. And then it looks like I'm going to move the ones that you guys chose over to the side, if I can. And out of those 4 we've chosen, we're asking you to pick 3. So if everyone would pick the 3 they think is most important. Do I need more dots?
Does each of us pick 3?
Yes, each of you pick 3. So it looks like the 3 you all have chosen is, are we done voting? Planning for sustainable infrastructure, planning for growth, land use, housing, and transportation, and advancing education and upward economic mobility of residents. So those are your 3 top planning issues as a group. So the next thing I'm going to ask you for is your big ideas. And these are related to the Historic Resources Commission as a whole. So if everyone would move to slide 10, and if everyone would take a card and put on there their big idea. So what is your big idea that your organization would like the county to support to improve our community? I think someone might have made one of the boxes a little big. Oops. Okay. So we have 1% of developer budget for historic preservation, especially Black history. Comprehensive zoning plan to ensure growth is holistic for all. Planning for affordable and sustainable housing. Prioritizing affordable housing. Affordable housing. This is a theme we've been seeing a lot through this process. Update countywide architectural survey. Clean the creeks, streams, and French Broad River. Identifying, protecting historic areas in downtown area through survey and districting, perhaps. Job education outside of colleges and opportunities for more in our community, and comprehensive inventory of historic resources in the county. Protect historic fabric integrity of historic community resources. So as a group, you all need to sort of decide what your 3 biggest priorities are. So again, this is where the dots come in. If everyone would take a dot and put it on their what they think is the best to identify those 3 big ideas. Did everybody get a dot, or do I need to make more?
We're picking just one, or each of us should pick 3 again?
1.
Okay.
More dots? Okay, so out of everybody done? A few more seconds to move your dots. Okay. So out of them, the 2 that got double votes are planning 1% of developer budget for historic preservation, especially Black history, and then planning for affordable and sustainable housing. And then we have a couple, which I'm going to move over here, who got 1 dot each. So we're going to see if we can narrow that down. I can move this. Move. There we go. So out of those ones off to the right, if everyone would take a dot and vote for that third big idea, what they think is the best third big idea. It looks like so just in case you guys want to think about this, identifying protecting historic areas in downtown area. Are we talking about the city of Asheville?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify about that too, because if that's what you're referring to, that's kind of covered by the city's comprehensive plan versus the countywide comprehensive plan, which
yes. So it would cover the county, and it would cover general policy decisions like sidewalks, sidewalk policy. But as far as development regs, it cannot do anything, or zoning regs, it couldn't do anything within the city of Asheville. It could only do things outside in the unincorporated parts of the county. And I sort of see that everybody sort of changed their mind with that one when we said that. So it looks like everybody is done. And if I can move it, our 3 big, oops, I moved the dot and not the card. Our 3 big ideas are 1% of developer budget for historic preservation, planning for affordable and sustainable housing, and comprehensive inventory of historic resources in the county. Protect historic fabric and integrity of historic community resources. Okay, so now we've got our 3 big ideas. If everyone would move to slide 11. And so the purpose of this one, and this can be as many as you want, you all just have to come to consensus that you agree with all of them, is new ideas provide examples of new policies, programs, or projects that could be included in the comprehensive plan and would support the advancement of your organization's mission, or in this case, the board's mission. So I'll give you guys a few more minutes. It looks like everybody has stopped typing. So we have that first one, new definitions. Okay. I was trying to figure that out. New definitions of historic districts, areas that are easier to achieve and maintain. County survey to examine historic properties. Fully funding HRC fully each year. Complete architectural survey and documentation of county resources in terms of historic properties. Is that what that one? Just to clarify that one.
Yes.
Okay. Overlay zoning district to protect historic communities, and then solidify relationship between HRC and county, consistent, reliable, impactful funding of HRC. So these new ideas will all get added as input to the survey. And thank you guys so much for hanging in there with me and for going through this exercise tonight. And that is the end of sort of the input section. And just if we would all move to slide 12. This is just some resources for you. There's our website, signing up for our weekly e-newsletter, attending one of our public input meetings, or sharing your input online. And if everyone would just move to slide 13. This is the Long Range Planning Division team. It's myself, then Shannon Capizzelli and Haley. And if you guys have any questions or comments or need any information at all regarding the comp plan, reach out to us. And just before I leave, I'll open it up if you guys have any questions or anything you want to ask me. Doesn't look like it. Y'all want to get off of here and
Thank you.
And then end the night. Well, thank you guys so much for sticking in there with me. Thank you for the input. I will turn it back over to your staff. But again, thank you so much for hanging in there and doing that for us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. I have some questions about a couple of the comments you guys made just now. Just to clarify, we do have a National Register district downtown that does include an inventory that was updated about 10 years ago. So it's pretty up to date. That is not the same thing, obviously, as a local district, which we talk about every now and then as far as maybe designating character areas downtown, but it's sort of a hot potato. But if you all ever have any questions about clarifying on the different types of designation or which areas have been inventoried and which ones haven't, just let me know. I'm happy to point you to some GIS information you can look at if you're curious. That includes the entire state of North Carolina, where you can see all the resources that have been surveyed, designated, determined to be eligible for listing in the National Register, etc. So I can certainly send a link out to that if you guys are interested and you haven't used that before. I'm curious about the definition of historic districts, whoever made that comment.
That was me, Alex. What I was trying to, with such a small thing, is to say we have these large, cumbersome district things, but are there ways of protecting smaller areas that aren't quite as restrictive and all that stuff? So there are ways we can identify areas that could be nurtured and try to maintain, because often area like Kenilworth is a great area. So much development has happened now that to try and put together a district, we'd have to create this weird, almost like a gerrymandered looking type of weird spider kind of thing with parts of streets. Whereas if you could find ways to identify parts of a street or just a street or smaller subsections, things that you can have a Kenilworth district that's A, B, C, and D, even though they're not contiguous, because you almost can't create a contiguous district anymore. So I know that's more of a city, but there could be some county examples of that type of thing. So looking for new ways of saying there's either an all or nothing way of having a local or a federal district. Is there some other way we can look at trying to encourage and find ways to protect some of these areas without creating something that is so hard to achieve.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm not to bog us down with this, but you know, because of the way the framework is written for districting, sort of like we have to have this contiguous area. It has to be defined. And I think to some extent, every neighborhood's going to have infill, you know, whether it was from 50 years ago to yesterday. I think it just is kind of a matter of interpretation of how much infill might tip a scale to kind of then like break up a district where it couldn't be designated. But we could certainly look at that with Kenilworth if, you know, there was interest in the neighborhood on doing a study to see what a district might look like there. Because I don't think we've never studied Kenilworth in that way, but
the standards could also dictate that they don't have to be as restrictive as Montfort, or you know, it could just be keep the front a facade of the buildings somewhat similar. I think isn't that true, Alex? That it's going to be pretty customized to exactly what the neighbors want to protect.
We don't have any districts like that here, obviously. And I don't know, I can reach out on there's a preservation staff listserv for the state of North Carolina, and I can reach out on the listserv to see if there are any examples of neighborhoods where there are like kind of facade protections, if you will, versus I think I have heard of some where it's like the whole front half of the house instead of the entire house. And then there's also like neighborhood conservation overlays, which is like way lighter. It doesn't affect really any design details to the degree that a historic district would. It more so looks at like setback, building orientation, height, those types of like really kind of basic form type things. But we can certainly explore that if there's interest in Kenilworth. And we have a new staff member from Richmond that just joined us about a month ago, and so I was kind of picking his brain about what they do up there. And they have some districts where they were looking at, like, these are more like for like underrepresented communities that have lost a lot of integrity and are experiencing demolition and insensitive infill, like Burton Street and East End. They were looking at perhaps having some kind of overlay where only to not burden the existing homeowners who may not be able to afford the, you know, maintenance of, you know, keeping all of the wood windows or whatever. Like, could they just regulate new construction in those districts so that the new construction projects were consistent with the architectural character of the historic building? So I thought that was maybe kind of an interesting thought. So I know that's not exactly what you're getting at, James, but I've been thinking on these ideas of different ways we can kind of be more creative, because yeah, the traditional framework of preservation and districts can be pretty like cumbersome and a little bit hard to achieve in some areas where we might otherwise want to. So so thanks for bringing that up and for clarifying. That's helpful food for thought. And thanks everyone for chiming in on your ideas for them. I think, you know, obviously countywide survey is awesome, affordable housing and, you know, equitable services. Those are all super important things. So I'm glad that you all were able to provide input. And again, I would like Jillian, you know, encourage you all to go onto their, you know, virtual platform and make any other additional comments or input that you can. So thank you, Jillian. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you. It was really interesting. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, you too. And so that's kind of a nice seg into our next small item that I just really briefly want to give you all an update on before we break. The Burton Street survey that we've been working on since spring of last year. We are almost to the end of that. We had to give a little bit of an extension to the consultant to work on the draft survey report. So hoping to have that by the end of next week, at which point we'll review it and then share it all with you. Also hoping to have the next step beyond the Burton Street architectural survey is that we're going to create a pattern book for the neighborhood. If you haven't seen a pattern book, you might check out My Chat Home, which I can drop a link in the let's see if I can find it in the chat. It's Chattanooga they've created kind of a digital version of the pattern book. Traditional pattern books tend to be more like design guidelines or, paper copy and really expensive to pay a consultant to do. So we have this cool Esri story map software that we can use to create an interactive version where what we're going to do is just illustrate the common building typologies and streetscape features and kind of flesh out some of the history on this online site where you can kind of interact with a map and look at the different maybe some different photographic examples throughout the neighborhood. And our goal with the pattern book is to share that with developers so that they can kind of be more thoughtful about the infill development they're putting in that neighborhood. It, like many of our other neighborhoods, has, no offense if anybody loves this style, I don't mean this in a negative way, but I call them the chicken coop houses, kind of tall, stilty ones with the shed roofs on them. So the neighborhood had some concerns about some of the houses that were going up in their neighborhood. And it's a legacy neighborhood, so we're helping them to do some work without doing a full-blown district there that would kind of be more restrictive on the property owners. So that hopefully we'll start working on the pattern book here later in the year. And that'll be a pilot for us. We've never done that before, so it could be a good model for other neighborhoods too. And yeah, then the African American Heritage Survey that we started 4 years ago, still kind of lingering in the background. We haven't gotten the draft, the final revised draft back from the consultant who was working on all the revisions. But we hope to have that in the very near future as well to share with you all and then publish. Thanks. Stacy just posted the link to the Chattanooga online or digital pattern book if you all wanted to look at an example that we're kind of mimicking our work on. So any questions about those two projects?
No, but on Burton Street, I think Dwayne's having people out on MLK at 1 o'clock on Bryant Street if somebody wants to on Monday. Is that okay to say? On Monday.
Are they having some kind of event? Are they?
It's a major event, Alex. It's a national day of service to encourage volunteer in various community. They're having food, snacks. It's Riverlink Parks and Rec. They sit next to you or somewhere over there. Engineering Service and Burton Street neighborhood is 1 o'clock at 47 Bryant Street.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right, well, that's all I have. So if anybody else has anything they want to talk about, I will.
Only my constant yammering about let's keep an eye on reparations funding and any way we can help weigh in with the reparations committee to try and advocate for Black historic resources that could use some funding for preservation like the YMI and similar.
I'm glad you brought that up. Brenda Mills, who is our equity and inclusion director, I talked to her a little bit about it briefly the other day, and they're going to have either her or one of her staff members are going to come and give a presentation on what they are envisioning for how that commission will work and what the priorities they think will be for that funding. So look for that on the agenda sometime soon.
Great, thank you.
And that Cappadocia thing, Alex.
All right.
And Grail, you want to talk about that real fast? Real fast. Yeah.
Sure. This is a thing to celebrate. Thank you. I feel like we get bogged down with all the bad news. Here's some
and this
good
is
news.
All because of Alex.
I would say this is all because of a transportation planner named Jessica Morris. She's our assistant director of transportation. She reached out to me because there was a little house on Mack Street in the East End that was proposed for demolition as part of an infill development. And one of the reasons she heard about it is because there's an unopened right-of-way that was involved, and they always have to weigh in on whether an unopened right-of-way could be closed permanently. And so she was sad to hear that this little structure was going to be demolished. And so she reached out to me and asked if there's anything that I could do. And I reached out to the Preservation Society, and they stepped in. Then learned that the that the developer was planning to demolish not only the house, but Cappadocia, which is a 1927 church around the corner. And PSABC was able to talk them into selling the property. And so now that it will be permanently protected. And the plan is to reuse for affordable housing for both structures. So hooray.
And I'm meeting with PSABC staff tomorrow, I think, to talk about how a rezoning application would work in order to accommodate multifamily too.
Thank you all for all what y'all are doing on that. 'Cause that would have been a big tooth taken out of the neighborhood, which is pretty freaking intact. From Ridge, Grail, Max, it's on the. There needs to be what, like James is saying, there needs to be some kind of cobbling together a conservation district that works for that community to stay there after what they've been through on former Valley Street. Anywho, congratulations, y'all. Thank y'all.
No thanks owed here, but I'm just grateful to PSABC and their ability to get stuff done because they really are out there doing good work, and super grateful for them. And then we also internally, I talked with the transportation planner I mentioned about, we have a broader group that's planning services, meaning my department, and then development services staff, which is enormous. They have like over 50 staff members. Not all of them join, but many of us get together once a month to talk about random stuff that's going on. And so my plan is to bring this up with that group too, so that we can all try to keep each other informed when these things pop up in people's work, so that, you know, someone can know that there's potential for demolition, especially in our underrepresented neighborhoods. So you can try to do something about it.
Seems
Motion
like
to
it. Motion to close.
Second.
All right,
Thanks,
folks.
everybody.
I guess we're still thinking next month will be virtual, I guess.
Yep.
All right, we'll see y'all next month.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Have a
Good
great
night,
night.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.